Does this mic work?
I think so.
Can I use it? I hate to be sitting behind a podium without mics, but I just want to come out here and just be
Can't hear you.
Fix the mic.
I live in a community. I live in a community that is struggling, not just because of who is president today. It is struggling because of decades and decades of policy that came from Washington, D.C. that redlined our community, disinvested in our community, put forth overtly bigoted laws that ground down communities like ours, to the detriment not just of those communities, but the ideas of our country. I get worried when we take a moment like this and make it all about who is president. This is more than who's president. In fact, this is a president who wants us to make it all about him. Because when he is leading the news, when he is leading the headlines, when everybody's talking about him, he's sucking all the oxygen there and distracting it from the issues that not just affect communities of color, but affect all communities in our country. This is not about him. It is about us, the United States of America, built one nation under God.
Yes.
And we're not going to let people slice and divide us against each other. We need to talk about the issues. Now, I love the National Action Network because it didn't start as a response to Trump. It started as a response to injustice.
Yes.
And it has been at this for many years because everybody in this room who loves this country, and I believe this, if this country hasn't broken your heart, you don't love her enough.
No.
You don't love her enough because there is injustice in our nation.
Yes.
And this is an organization that formed not because everything's going right, but because there is injustice in our midst. This is a group of folks, like Americans I've met all over this country, who are dissatisfied. We are dissatisfied because we live in a country right now where in many communities, kids can find unleaded gasoline easier than unleaded water. Yes. We are dissatisfied because we live in a nation that has a criminal justice system that treats you better if you're rich and guilty than poor and innocent. We are dissatisfied because we live in a nation right now that pays teachers so little that they have to get extra jobs just to make ends meet. We are dissatisfied in this country because on blocks like mine, where a young man was murdered with an assault weapon,
Speak, brother.
we are dissatisfied because we're not even doing the common sense things to make our communities safer that 90% of Americans agree we should do. We're dissatisfied because we have a nation right now where young brothers like Jamil Roberson,
Yes.
a security officer who subdued an assailant, was shot and killed. Like how many other of our young men and women? We're dissatisfied because there are millions of Americans, black and white and Latino, from all backgrounds, who work full-time jobs every single day, but still are below the poverty line.
Yes.
We're dissatisfied in a nation that professes to favor freedom, but 1 out of every 3 incarcerated women on the planet Earth is right here in the United States of America. And over 80% of those women are survivors of sexual assault. Talk about the school-to-prison pipeline, which is real, but the sexual assault to prison pipeline is also real.
Yes.
Everything I just mentioned, and haven't even mentioned, like massive voter suppression like we're seeing in the state of Georgia.
Yes.
Everything I mentioned was going on before this president was elected.
Yes.
Yes.
And so what do we stand for? Why are we here? Not to talk about who we're against, but what we're for. This is a country that is not perfect. Our very founding, these incredible principles and ideals, those documents that elevated the greatest of American values, were also saturated with residues of bigotry and hate. Native Americans in our Declaration of Independence are referred to as savages. Blacks are fractions of human beings, women not mentioned at all. And so the great history of America isn't the absence of hate, isn't the absence of bigotry, isn't the absence of oppression. Those have been with us from the start. The great history of America is not folk here in Washington, but ordinary Americans making an extraordinary commitment to the cause of our country, fighting against those ills and fighting against those evils to make real on the promise of the country for more and more people. That's the story of America. And it didn't come from Washington. It came from organizers like you who came to Washington.
Yes.
It wasn't Strom Thurmond that woke up one day and said, you know what? It's about time those Negro people have some civil rights. No, it was Black and brown folks, straight and gay folk, Catholic and Jewish folk, all kind of folks who made a coalition of urgency, who fought for the justice that we enjoy.
Yes.
And the problem right now, I'm sorry, as much as we want to make it about one individual in the White House, King said it more eloquently. What we have to repent for in this day and age is not just the vitriolic words and violent actions of the bad people, but the appalling silence and inaction of the good people.
Yes.
We have the people in this country we need to drive the changes that we have to demand.
Yes.
The question is, too many people are sitting on the sidelines. Too many people think democracy is a spectator sport. All the great changes of our history, from the suffrage movement to the labor movement, all the great changes have been made because the consciousness of our country has awoken and claim the rightful ideals that we profess when we pledge allegiance to that flag and say that we're going to be a nation of liberty and justice, not for some, for all. And that's where we are right now in America. The very American dream hangs in the balance yet again. This is a moral moment in our country. And everybody here has to make the decision.
Yes.
Will we begin to dilute our ideals as a nation as powerful interests get more and more powerful, and struggling Americans, working Americans, lose their opportunities, that the foundation of this country becomes quicksand, pulling people down into poverty, into hopelessness, into despair, as rates of opioid addiction go up, as rates of suicide go up, from farmers to people in communities. We are seeing signs that we are losing the very idea of the American dream. Well, I believe in the American dream, and I believe it's worth fighting for.
Yes.
And so I'm going to end with what you all already do. With what you all already do. With what Reverend Al lives every day. Some folk get it twisted. They forget the lessons, Reverend, from church. We all love our country. Don't let anybody use patriotism as a weapon against another Americans. We all love our country. But the question is, as they say in church, faith without works is dead. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Well, the civic faith that we have and the ideals we swear an oath to, those are being tested right now. It's not enough to put your hand over your heart and say, I pledge allegiance to the ideals of this country. You got to not just put your hand over your heart, but you got to extend your hand in service, reaching out to your fellow American, even if they disagree with you politically, even if they disagree with you the way you pray, even if they disagree with your ideas. We're all one nation with one destiny. We need each other. And so I just end with a poem, because sometimes you got to go back to art. We know this from the movement. The songs and the poetry sustained us, awoken the moral imagination of a country to what's possible. And I still believe that we are a nation headed to the promised land. I still believe that we are a nation that can be a light unto other nations again. I still believe that there's nothing that's wrong with America that can't be solved by what's right with America. And so I call on the words of Langston Hughes, who basically said, swear the oath, not with your words, but with your deeds. He said, oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet, but yet must be, the land where everyone is free. The poor man, the Indian, the Negro, me. And who made America? Whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain must make our mighty dream live again. Oh yes, I say it plain, America never was America to me. And yet I swear this oath, America will be. Right now, this nation needs every single one of us. This nation needs a National Anthem Network. This nation needs people who swear that oath, not with their lips, not with their words, but with their commitment to country, because there are too many things going wrong. And don't try to make them about one individual. We've got to make them about the cause of our country, where all of us, united in struggle, can make real on the words of our ancestors. And this can be a nation, one under God, where everyone has abundant pathways to life, liberty, and a whole lot of happiness. Thank you.